know you're a fan as well, and we'll talk about him, RFK. But you have your concerns about Marco Rubio. You have your concerns about Mike Waltz. And I've heard you voice your concerns about my friend and former co-host, Pete Hegseth. In fact, you've gone to say that it's a disaster. Why do you think these appointments are a disaster?
Well, to be clear, I said Rubio is a disaster. And I would throw Waltz in there too as a disaster. Look, these are people who have a long history of being absolutely married to the neoconservative, neoliberal consensus on foreign policy, and have supported every one of the absolute catastrophic, disastrous wars of the last 25 years.
Dave Smith schools Will Cain over Donald Trump's failures in this clip from The Will Cain Show, as Will Cain asks Dave Smith about Trump's cabinet picks. And this is a good exchange between Dave Smith and Will Cain, but Dave Smith nails Will Cain in the end with a great point. So let's jump in and check out this back and forth with Dave Smith and Will Cain.
Now, to your guy, Pete Hegseth, who I am, to use your distinction, friendly, but not really friends with, but I have met him at Fox News before. And I do think he's a very smart and capable guy. And I do think he's honest. I remember very vividly, he did this one segment, this was many years ago on Fox News, where he was asked about his time in Afghanistan, and he just started openly talking about the epidemic of the warlords that we're propping up raping little boys. And I was like blown away by the honesty. Like, I mean, I was well aware of this, but nobody ever talks about it. And so it was like, and I also think he's had some really good rhetoric on Ukraine. Like I've heard him make very good points on that policy. And it seems to me that he was kind of a guy who did support the Cheney-Bush foreign policy, but has re-examined that. So I don't know. He's a little bit more of a question mark to me, and we'll see what ends up happening. I just think that, look, the entire Donald Trump America First movement from 2016, when he looked at Jeb Bush in the eyes and told him, your brother lied us into war, has been that there's been a rejection of this foreign policy, and for good reason. I mean, who could, in the last 25 years, we've had major military conflicts and wars all throughout the region. I mean, in Afghanistan and Iraq, obviously, in Pakistan, in Syria, in Yemen, in Somalia, in Libya. And what they all have in common is that they were just absolute disasters, like catastrophes. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of innocent dead people, trillions of dollars wasted, the region destabilized, and our bravest young men left wounded or injured or committing suicide by the tens of thousands. I mean, like, what policy could be more of a disaster than that? I can't think of anything else. And I'm against almost every government policy, but you'll have conservatives who will like rant about what minimum wage laws have done. Like, oh, okay, yeah, they're pretty bad, but what about this? And now we're fighting two proxy wars, one with the biggest nuclear power in the world, and another just in the biggest hotbed area of the world, where there's looming threats of conflicts with Iran and Hezbollah and the Houthis, and for what? Like, I'm sorry, but the overwhelming burden should be on you, advocate of any of these wars, to demonstrate very clearly how this is in America's interest, except they can't do that because it's not. And so what they do is just smear Tulsi Gabbard as a Russian traitor or something like that for daring to question any of that.
Will Cain is exactly right on this point. Our foreign policy for the previous decades have absolutely been terrible for us the world over, and no real good has come from a lot of it, unfortunately. And me personally, I think a lot of it is the military-industrial complex tied with our foreign policy, because they need wars, so they need people in order to go make their soldiers or our soldiers, whoever's soldiers, take our weapons and our arms and go over there and fight. I think they're too tied into one, and that's why it's always been this on the back end, people making money, and these people in office basically carrying out the whims in order for them to get money. I think it's an absolutely terrible, corrupt system, and it's led to absolutely no good. But to Dave Smith's point, yeah, keeping anyone who is around in any position, I can absolutely see that being detrimental to an America First agenda if you're not trying to get involved in other people's business, which is the whole point. So keeping some of those people around, Yeah, I mean, I can understand that point, but let me know in the comments how you feel about that and leave a like. It helps the algorithm. Let's get back in.
We'll get into Tulsi in just a moment. Sure. I share two things with you. I feel like, first of all, our integral position as a citizenry should be skepticism towards power, even if your friends are in power. You should have a level of skepticism towards any power. Second, once that power wants to do something with its power, we should be requiring them to articulate to us why it is in the interest of America, America first. Let me, though, then offer you, if not a defense, a perspective on what I think about all of those individuals. And I'm going to give you three quick ones. I know Michael Waltz, not as well, but I know Mike Waltz. I definitely have sat on a couch and have known him for a decade in Pete Hegseth. I do think, one, Dave, there has been an evolution in many people's points of view over the past 5 to 10 years when it comes to foreign policy. I do think in many of those instances, it's an honest recalculation. Does that mean it's one that you can count on into perpetuity? No, but I do think it's honest. Two, I think that there is a utilitarian effect to Donald Trump. So I've seen you tweet about this, and nobody within Trump world likes him anymore, but there was a utilitarian role to John Bolton. And Trump's talked about it, and it's pretty funny when he talks about it. But he's like, I'd sit down with these guys, and I've got this guy over here turning red in his face, and his mustache is blaring out, and his eyes are reading hatred. And the other worlders are going, oh my God, I think this guy wants war with me. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump becomes good cop. Some neoconish instincts present, not driving, but present within this administration actually doesn't scare me, because I think you've also got Tulsi. You've also got these other power players in there, and I've seen you call it incoherent. I don't think, this is where I think sometimes I've had this debate with you, or I've moderated you with Ben Domenech. Like, libertarianism, sometimes its failure is puritanical. It's puritanical and utopic. And like, do you need everybody singing from the same script as Donald Trump? No, there's a utilitarian purpose to having different points of view in that room. And then finally, third, though, I do trust Donald Trump's instinct. He has been consistent in America first, and all of these people work for Donald Trump.
Well, okay, so there's a lot there. The first thing I would say is that a lot of times I think when we talk about government in general, we confuse the mythology with the reality. And so to say that all of these people work for Donald Trump, well, I mean, I don't know. In his first 4 years, all the people under him certainly did not work for him. And in fact, a lot of the people who worked for him framed him for treason, knowing that they were lying. And so, no, I don't think it's like...
Real quick, that's a fair rebuttal, a totally fair rebuttal that seems to be a priority to change this time around with Trump.
Now, that I agree with you about. And I think there's a reason why he put outsiders at, Tulsi and Matt Gaetz, those picks really do. That's a symbol that he is thinking the way you're talking about. But I do look, I'm familiar with the argument that Trump's made. I think he's got it completely wrong. And the truth is that having John Bolton by his side didn't drive the North Koreans to the table because they were so scared of him. They came to the table. He brought John Bolton in, and it killed the peace talks. And there's tens of millions of prisoners living under Kim Jong-un. It's a tragedy of our time that those peace talks didn't result in anything more. And I just don't really buy this idea that as if the world hasn't gotten the message yet that America's willing to bomb some people, or as if Donald Trump himself, just from his first administration, doesn't have the street cred from all of the, from Soleimani and bombing Syria and backing the Saudis in their war against Yemen. I mean, I don't think you actually need to keep these war hawks in your cabinet just so that people are scared of what the crazy guy might do. I think that in his first administration, they were nothing but a net negative, and I think they're probably going to be a net negative again here. And
let me know in the comments down below, folks, how you feel about this, but I can understand Will Cain's point about having different perspectives in the room. You don't necessarily want an echo chamber. You don't want to be like the woke left. You see the damage that's done. You want different people thinking different ways. To a point, though. I mean, as I said earlier, I think foreign policy and the military-industrial complex are linked, one and the same. So you have to question the people who are doing the talking on foreign policy that you're keeping around. And to Dave Smith's point, I mean, we can go back and we can look at the history. John Bolton, the history of all the wars, proxy wars, And who is this really benefiting during all of those? Are they really benefiting America? Or are they benefiting the globalists and their order, or us at home? I don't think it's benefiting us at home. I think it's benefiting the globalist agenda by far and large. I mean, almost all of these conflicts have nothing to do with us. They really don't. And we've just been helping other people handle their business and keeping those people around in the room doing the talking. Yeah, I think, as Dave Smith points out, yeah, it could be self-sabotage in a lot of ways. I mean, Trump kept us out of wars. I would like to see Trump keep doing that. But having people who have a reputation of advancing the thing that you're not in support of around, especially when you're trying to drive that policy home as hard and as fast as you can, yeah, I can see how that's going to be detrimental to the larger scale. But let me know how you feel about that in the comments, folks. Thanks for watching. Take care, like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.